Welcome to Emotions and Eating with Nicola Beer. Nicola controlled her feelings using food for 25 years, so she knows how draining it is to be constantly thinking about or acting out with food. Thankfully, having made an amazing breakthrough in her recovery, her mission became about helping others escape the unsatisfying cycle of frustration and self-medication with food. Nicola is determined to help you find your inner strength so you can be healthy, gain confidence, feel great, and be at peace with yourself and food.
Hi and welcome, so happy you're here. I'm going to be talking about a really interesting and very important topic today, and that's how childhood experiences affect us in our relationships as well as our mental health. And I want to go through some studies and why this is such an important area to examine for ourselves so that we can be the best version of ourselves in our adult life, in our adult relationships. Our childhood experiences affect us in so many ways. Dr. Gabor Mate put it simply when he said, the major contributor, and I don't say only, but the major contributing factor to the onset of illness, whether it's mental illness, physical illness, whether it's addiction, whether it's behavioural problems, is what happens to people in the first few years of life. A study of over 17,000 people in the US has found that adverse childhood experiences, such as witnessing domestic violence, being the victim of abuse, physical, sexual or emotional, being the victim of neglect, physical and emotional, being a member of a family that someone in that family has gone into prison and been incarcerated, parental abandonment through separation or divorce, a parent with a mental health condition, growing up in a household where there are adults with alcohol or drug use problems, are all termed as adverse childhood experiences. And all of those that I've just mentioned can have a long-lasting negative impact on a person's mental health, well-being, and their ability to lead a successful life, including completing education to a high level, securing a well-paid job, as well as mental and physical well-being. It can literally affect the neuroconnections in the brain and change the structure of the DNA. Adverse childhood experiences, ACE is, which I may refer to in the rest of this episode, have also been proven to increase the risk of chronic illnesses, weakened immune system that cause people to feel ill more often than others who have not had the same childhood experiences. And people regularly seek my support for depression support, anxiety support, and other forms of help to overcome challenges in life. When we go into it, a large majority of them have experienced one of those adverse childhood experiences that I've mentioned early on in their life. So that's why I felt it was really important to share this with you, because love, compassion and support is needed for the children that have gone through that and the adults affected by this, for change to happen and for us to have a healthy, happier relationship. We need to make sure that as individuals we are healing and changing our DNA through positive ways of doing that, which we can do, and also to help a spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, to work through what they need to work through, support them to do any change work so that you can have a more positive, closer relationship without angry outbursts, without insecurity, without obsessive jealousy, without drama, without addictions, etc., etc. Now, maybe you already know about this study the biggest study of all time, 17,000 people, and I believe now there's even more that they've added into this study. If you want to learn more about the findings and the research about this, I'm going to keep on talking about it. If this doesn't apply to you, if you're not really interested in adverse childhood experiences, then please turn off this podcast and join another one. There's lots of different topics that you can enjoy, and there's going to be plenty more coming. So if this isn't for you, thanks for being here so far, and I wish you the best. And for those that you want to learn more about this, I feel it's so important, and I'm excited to share how you can help yourself at the end if you identify with any of this. I'm also very personally passionate about spreading awareness on adverse childhood experiences, because having gone through this myself and knowing that it caused so many problems for me in my teenage years, in my adult life, and had a huge impact on my relationship life, I really wanted to share this because I feel it's so important. Many of you know that my dad left when I was 13, and for about 5-6 months didn't really have any contact with him, and he was my rock, he was my idol. He protected us from my mum's physical, emotional and mental abuse. So when he left, it was like losing two parents, because my mum even went worse, more aggressive and more lost herself. And I was so angry and had so much rage that I then took that out on my own body, and I had a eating disorder for, goodness, a long time, over 20 years. It took me to finally get free from that. I think I actually started when I was around 9, and it took me at least 20 years to get rid of it. And then I also had self-esteem issues. I had body dysmorphia, so no matter how good or thin or whatever I thought something would do to help me look better, it was never enough. There was always this comparing myself to others, criticizing myself, and my relationship life was pretty messy as well. I never really believed it when people told me that they loved me, and I always felt that I had to be Miss Independent. I couldn't rely on anyone. I couldn't trust anyone fully. I couldn't rely on anyone fully. I couldn't let go. I couldn't let myself be loved, because I'd learned at a very young age that the only person to rely on in the world is yourself, and never trust and never fully give yourself to anyone else, never be vulnerable for anyone else, because you're on your own, Nicola. So this, of course, was horrible and it wasn't giving me the life that I wanted, the relationship that I wanted, and the freedom that I wanted. And like most people that struggle with any form of addiction, I got rid of my eating disorder, which was like an addiction because I was obsessing about what I was eating or not eating, to then obsessing about drinking, to then obsessing about something else. So unless we break the cycle, which I now help thousands of people to break the cycle, and it changed my life, which is why I love doing my intensive 3-day breakthrough sessions. It helped me create the relationship of my dreams. It helped me to be free of obsessive thinking, obsessive addictions and habits. I don't really like to call them addictions because you are really in control. You may have an illusion that you're not in control. You are really, and that's what I love to help people to do, to see that they are in control really. It's an illusion. And, you can go from one habit to the next, whether it's exercise, even healthy habits. But if it's becoming overwhelming obsessiveness, you want it to stop. And this can all come from these adverse childhood experiences. Why is this? How does this happen? I know that I was wondering, how can this happen? How can the early childhood experiences, those experiences that I mentioned to you, affect us for the rest of our life unless we do the work to change them, to free ourselves and to create new neural connections and change our DNA with our thinking, which I've got another article and podcast coming out on that soon. So stay tuned, do subscribe to the show because that one is also super interesting. So how does this happen? Well, according to the study, according to Dr. Gabor Mate, we go through a huge amount of stress at that young age, and this stress creates neural pathways and neural connections, sending the stress hormone, flooding our system with the stress hormone. This then affects our serotonin neuroconnections. So we experience different brain patterns to children that grow up in a happy, loving, secure, peaceful environment. And this means that because at those earlier years in life, we didn't form those positive neuroconnections, we become less able to handle difficult situations. We have more limited thinking capacity, and those are needed for us to remain in a healthy condition. If we didn't have enough positive neuroconnections, positive serotonin levels, the ability to handle stressful situations by having a buffer of positivity, it means later in life we're going to become extra stressed. We're going to need to reach out for some addictive habit to escape. We're often going to struggle in our education and professionally as we're less equipped to handle stressful situations. We're going to get straight back into the stress that we had at an early age. And most people, of course, at an early age are going to be less likely to be able to deal with those stresses. As quoted in the book by Dr. Gabor Mate, I've read all of his books, The Body Never Lies, he says that there's a compelling evidence advanced by scientists from many fields that an intimate relationship exists between the brain and the immune system. So the stress and the trauma in childhood will impact our brain, and then this, according to the Child Development Centre, the ACE study, this will impact how a person goes on to live their life, and it will affect their mental and physical health. According to the study, and you can go and research this yourself, people who experience these adverse childhood experiences that I outlined are more likely to struggle with completing education or achieving good grades. They may struggle to secure stable employment. They're more likely to experience toxic stress. They're at a higher risk of contracting sexually transmitted diseases. They're at a higher risk of suffering pregnancy complications. They're likely to fall pregnant in their teens, at higher risk of developing chronic illnesses like diabetes, cancer and heart disease, likely to experience suicidal thoughts or commit suicide, likely to struggle to form secure relationships with others, at a higher risk of developing low self-esteem and lack confidence, at a higher risk of passing on health conditions to children. And these are actually scientific facts. It's not about theory, this is about statistics. So as you can see from this, prolonged exposure to stressful or challenging situations early on results in people being less able to handle difficult situations later on in life, more likely to suffer in many different ways. So awareness of this and compassion towards those who are unwell in whatever form is crucial. In my experience helping people overcome addictions, depression, anxiety, and unwanted habits, whether that's emotional eating, forming an addictive relationship with a substance, etc., it's so important to first focus on creating self-love, confidence, and rebuilding positive neural pathways for them so that they can accept themselves and be themselves. So now I'm going to be sharing some steps and ideas on what you can do and what a person can do to release their past experiences to create a brighter, healthier future. We can change this and turn it around. First is to increase your awareness. Understanding what you've been through as a child and how this affects you as an adult is a key step to overcoming the past. Acknowledgement and awareness are what will be the driving force behind you, changing your future, and the more knowledge you have, the more empowered you will feel to become free from your past. It's not always easy, but when you do, you can break